Hello everyone, just making sure that the live stream has started, and it has. My name is Nicholas Ashbaugh, as you know, and this is my little furry assistant Apollo. Good to see everybody. Welcome to this very special milestone video. I like to do it on sometimes on the zeros or the quarters or the halves, celebrations for all the work that we're all doing together here today. I'm going to put down Apollo. We're going to chat a little bit. This is another part of my house. I just decided to try a different location for a bit, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Put down this cutie pie here, and we'll begin. So first of all, thank you so much for helping me not just reach 325, but I think we hit one more. I think we're up at 326, so thank you. My goal this year is just to continue to see expansion and growth in the channel. And today's a very special video because it's a chance for me to give back to you by answering questions about intuitive development, by helping out with some of the questions you might have about me, etc. And yeah, so part of the reason I decided to shift location, I love the other room and we're still going to be doing things in there. Like I think in the winter months, I'd like to do like a fireside chat there. Today might have been a nice one too, but I wanted to get everything set up. But I was guided in dreams to shift the location because I don't know how many of you have seen Under the Tuscan Sun, that movie that was out like in the early 2000s. But I'm kind of like in an older house where I'm getting to know the different parts of it, and the beautiful main room has skylights, and my guide showed me that during the rainy season there could be water coming in, and I want to protect the equipment. So I'm going to treat that room more as sort of like a remote place where we can go for special occasions, and maybe I'll get like a second camera and an old computer, and then when I have a chance to just do something casual like this would work, but I don't have that set up yet. So we'll have the two locations, but I'm going to try to warm up this space as time allows. I kind of like that it's so bright and light and sort of crisp in here, but I'll get some new furniture and some new lamps in the background, and we'll have fun with it. I've only been here a month, so thank you so much. Okay, let's get going today. Thank you so much. I don't need to say this is why we're here, but thank you for the subscriptions and for the support. Remember, of course, subscribing is free. Today I'm actually giving back a little bit to the members and all of the Patreon supporters who submitted the questions. If we have time at the end, I'll answer some additional ones. Feel free to follow me on social media as well. It's my full name on all platforms. Remember, I don't have any backup accounts. I don't have any misspelled accounts. I don't offer products or services over direct message. And finally, if you'd like to show some support in real time, you can do that through super stickers and super chat. So quick note, if you have questions, hold them. I won't see them until I say I'm ready. So I know people keep asking, but I'm going to go through all the questions that were previously submitted as a courtesy again for the members and Patreon supporters. And then I'll open it up to some questions. Okay, so let's just hold for now and begin. So I got what was almost like 10 or 15 pages of questions, and I tried to take out all of the other stuff and just put the questions in, and there's some that are very similar. So I'm going to do a little picture in picture, and we'll just kind of do a very sort of easy view of this here. So here we go. All right, so beginning with one that's not really a question, but I get what Nicola was asking about, just about general psychic development, and there's some questions about intuitive development as well. It is just like a muscle, and I think the most important thing you can do is every day start to work with it. So you know what I'm doing with my YouTube shorts, same thing, pull a card a day and take some notes on what's going on and see how that card relates to the day and how it affected you. Maybe pull a card on a question that you have in your life for that day. Start with one card, build to 3, and then you can start to work with a bigger spread. But oftentimes, if you're just looking for yes, no, or trying to fill something out, a past, present, future spread is more than enough. You can get complicated, but you don't need to. All types of intuitive development, it's practice. It doesn't just come, it has to be worked out, and you have to sort of figure out what your own sort of connection to intuition looks and feels like. This is a good question. Someone's asking about how did I start to do videos? Why is it so complicated for them to do it? And I'm glad that people are finding that the videos are precise and helpful. So my background is actually in journalism, and then I learned how to edit video in my graduate degree. So that was actually part of my history. And I'm also, I'm a geek in a positive way, and I embrace the term. Like when I was in college, a lot of this stuff was just starting up. So a lot of people were self-taught when it came to timeline editing and HTML markup and coding and all of that. So we were at the frontier of that. And basically I just learned the hard way, and I practiced a lot, and I've been doing it for like 30 years. So, and from school onwards. So that's how it looks easy, but it's a lot of work. And those 1 minute videos, there's a lot of time that goes into the 1 minute videos. It's not one take. I may put an hour into a 1 minute video. Okay. So it takes time to get the right edit, and practice makes perfect with all of these things. And I would say, you're not necessarily making it more difficult. You'll get better with time, and you'll find some speed and some efficiencies. And you can watch some people out there that are doing this, and it gets easier. I will say you build your confidence as you do it more. You find what works for you, and go with that. You always want to be authentic. Okay. All right. We'll see if I'm going to answer all of these because there were a bunch here. So the first one I liked because it's the reverse. I chose to do this because of a spiritual awakening, and I wanted to learn more so that I would feel more empowered. So I've never felt like I shouldn't be doing it. I only felt like I should be doing it, and that was because of an awakening. Working in this path has actually affirmed that I'm on the right thing. I'm doing the right thing in my life. What's the most challenging? Self-care. And trying to find a way to kind of keep things sustainable, because there's a lot of work that goes into what all creators do. But I do dailies, weeklies, monthlies, and special event videos now. And like today, I have to put all of the new calendar up for the next month. And there's a lot of background stuff, and I'm a team of one. Dakota helps me moderate occasionally, but like it's mostly just me. Even this, I'm self-moderating. So I'm a one-person team for now, and so it's a lot. So I would say self-care. And I think that's true of everybody that works hard. What do? I take naps, I walk with the dog, I read a book, I disconnect, I get back into nature, I do something fun. Okay. How do you connect with your higher self, and how do you stay connected? Again, I feel like there's going to be a bit of this that it's repetitive here, but I work intuitively every single day, and sometimes all day working on intuitive stuff. So the more you do this, the more connected you will be, the easier it's going to get. So I would say a daily practice of maybe like 5 or 10 minutes each day. You don't have to do as much as I'm doing. Again, a single card pull and a meditation that goes with it would help you start to connect. You can also do yoga, you can meditate, you can pray, you can work with art or dance, anything that you want to stay connected to your own creative sort of vibe. And that's going to be really important to this. Again, consistency, authenticity, and something that you really like. Okay. Did you always gravitate towards spiritual work? And did I grow up in a religious household? So I had a traditional path for most of my life, but I was always connected. I was always drawn to things. I love the paranormal, and I was always curious about like mythology and world religion, not so much organized religion. And my family was not sort of like traditional in that sense. I was raised for a while with some traditional religious practices until I told my mom, I don't think I'm connecting with it. She said, that's fine. She said, I was raised this way and I wanted to give you a chance. And she said, honestly, I'm kind of disconnected myself too. So we all went more like cosmically spiritual, and it was a collective decision, and we just stopped going to organized religion. But there was a point at which my mom wanted to expose me to it, and that was good. So, but the cool thing here is that they supported me as I continued to try different things, including this. My dad didn't really get to see any of this come into fruition, but he knew that I was reading cards and didn't care. In fact, I think I said in the last Q&A, he told me that he had psychic experiences that he kind of like pushed under the rug, as did my mom. They were afraid. So there were psychic abilities on both sides of the family, but in the 20th century, it wasn't as acceptable. If you go back and look at like interviews with Shirley MacLaine when she wrote Out on a Limb, people ridiculed her. They made fun of her a lot because she was talking about, and it's not even that outlandish of a book. It's kind of, I want to say it's like not a big deal if you read it nowadays, but she was a trailblazer, for instance, and the butt of many jokes. So thankfully, that has shifted. And my mom lived to see, because she just passed this year, she lived to see what I'm doing. She loved it. And I'm sure she's still tuning in from upstairs. So there you go. Let's see. How do I recognize the difference between my own intuition and messages from the guides? The interesting thing is it's not an either or sometimes. It comes sort of like, it can come packaged together. So if you get an intuitive download, I mean, there's different types of ways to communicate with guides. Some of it, like clairsentience, is just going to be clear knowing, like you know something. Someone asks a question and you get an answer. It's not going to come attributed to a guide. It comes from intuition. Same thing when I'm pulling cards. A lot of this is a combination of a mesh of higher self and guides. If you specifically are tuning in, sometimes I will hear or see the guide or a relative, because there are different things that can be your guides. There can be archangels, there can be ascended masters, there can be non-corporeal spirits that we haven't even talked about, and of course God and the divine energy. So sometimes you get an attribution, but usually it's you set an intention before you begin to tune into love, light, and the highest good, or whatever your sort of mantra is, and you're in the flow. So it's not always necessary to kind of figure out the exact attribution of it. You know when it's coming through, that it's from source. That's the most important to me, that it's from source. All right. Let's see. How old were you when you realized that you were tuned in? Young, actually, but I didn't understand it. I've talked about this in previous Q&As, but it bears repetition because not everyone watches all the old videos. I think some of the earliest understandings that I was, the earliest sort of experiences that I had, I was sometimes capable of knowing like there'd be a pop quiz. So like when I was in school, I thought I better study this. And then there was pop quiz the next day. Or I would, when I was a little bit older and like renting an apartment, I would think, oh, I should tidy up because the manager's gonna come tomorrow. And then the manager would come tomorrow. So I would get these just little downloads like that. They got stronger as time went on, to the point where like if I can see if there's going to be some sort of like a car accident or something like that. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to drive my car for a couple days. I'm going to avoid doing this. And I can, basically you can course correct. And that's what I saw. That's why I'm moving rooms for broadcasting, because I was like, there's going to be complications, not now, but maybe in about 6 months or something, or whenever it's rainy in here. So I might as well get used to doing this from a different room for now. So that's what I've learned to do, is to listen. I like the other room, like the backdrop, I like it a lot, but I know that it's something that I should only use for special occasions, for instance. So yeah, I kind of got, at a very young age, I got downloads, but then I had an awakening around 2008, 2009, where it was just one synchronicity after another, and then it never stopped. So there you go. Can you describe what your daily, in the moment experiences with your guides, ancestors, source, angels, and how has it changed, progressed during your session? This is a good question. I would say every day it's different. So sometimes I hear spirit, like clairaudiently. Sometimes a big portion of what I do, and it's easier because I'm so busy, is I can just get dream messages. So it's basically like I'm watching a movie. And I can tell that it's not me because I'm not in them. I'm very much a third party watching. So I can be watching other, like, it's kind of like, yeah, other people doing something when I'm reading for this. So it's third person. And even in the sense of this space, what I saw was like, for instance, when I saw that there's probably going to be a leak from the skylights, I woke up and I saw a tarp over everything, a plastic tarp. The first message they gave me was water on my cars. I'm like, that's not good. And then they showed me more. They showed me like a tarp in the living room, and then the adjacent room, they showed me like pans catching water. I'm like, okay, let's be careful. Let's keep an eye on that. Let's not put the equipment there. So that's how I kind of get downloads and understand what's going on. So sometimes it's dreams, sometimes it's messages. I've had experiences before where I will hear spirit literally like whisper in one of my ears, like to be careful or to watch something. So it's an amalgam of things depending on how awake I am and what's going on. Okay, so lots of different ways. because spirit communication isn't just clear cut. There's a lot of different ways that you can tap into it. So dreams, clairaudience, clairsentience, and sometimes I just have a persistent thought and then I look into that. And then like recently, because I had someone pass into spirit, like I've had a lot of visitations from my mom. So sometimes at night she'll come and she'll put her hand on my forehead or something like that before I go to bed, which is sweet. So I've had things like that happen. So very nice. Like I actually quite enjoy my connection to spirit. It's positive, it's informative. I think the important thing for you to do is to have boundaries and set sort of like the limits of how often you're willing to kind of tune in. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. There were so many questions about connecting to your guides. I think all of these are about guides, different messages about guides. So I feel like I need to do a video about guides at some point because I think I had 5 questions. I'm not going to answer each individually. I'm actually going to take this off for a second just so we can talk to each other and then we'll talk about the guide stuff. So I think sometimes there's an overemphasis on trying to meet your guide. The most important thing you should try to do is to plug into source and to connect with yourself, because your higher self is guide number 1. I mean, the divine, and then you. Connect to those two and you're good. Your guides work through your higher self and God as well, so, or the divine or spirit or whatever you want to call it. So if you focus on that, you're good. You'll eventually then meet, when you're ready, some of these other guides, masters, and spirits that are helping you out. And it's a combination. And again, it goes beyond just angels and ghosts and because there's other realms of existence, other dimensions. So why complicate it too much? I think the most important thing is just to know yourself and know your connection. Focus on that, and then other stuff will start to come through as you're ready. And again, you don't just have a guide, and you don't always have a fixed guide throughout your life. You have multiple guides that help you through different. Think of, like, for instance, if you were traveling through Europe, you would have a different guide in Germany and a different guide in France, probably, that knows the sort of local countries and cultures and food. So just as different parts of your life are going to be punctuated by highs and lows and experiences, guides can come in and out. That's what I've seen anyway in my own life. Not always one solid guide. Okay? Let me see if I'm just scanning through it, and I think I got all the guide questions here. Let's see. And I do want to sort of highlight this question here, which is, is there a difference between messages from your guides and like higher self? You guys work together. It's a team. So if you're getting it from your higher self, your guides are working with you already. So I think there's too much of an emphasis on meeting your guide, and it blocks your intuition. So focus on connecting to source. Okay, let's see what else here. I would say every day focusing on meditation is a good way to start to get there. All right, and then this is someone who feels like they're out of touch with their intuitive side. I would say the same thing comes through for this. Don't force yourself down a path. So one of the reasons I stopped going to organized religion was, I remember the particular connection and the faith that my family was in. There was just a lot of, you would go to the space where you worshiped and you would just repeat things, and you would sit and you would stand and you would do things, and they never said why. And there was never any sort of deeper conversations. And this could have been more because where I went, they just weren't very tuned in themselves. But I never felt like anything going there. It was just learn this, do this, say this. And I got a spiritual awakening on a yoga mat, actually, not like the big awakening, but when we were just sitting there tuning in and then listening to a gong playing or a singing bowl, I'm like, wow, I actually went out of body. I never went out of body when I was in the place where I was worshiping before. So what I realized is that there are different ways to connect to source. For some, that other way worked. For me, I was like, no, I need to go way further out there because the other one was restricting me too much. That's why I look at the Hierophant cards sometimes and I'm like, we got to push through the gatekeeper, because sometimes the gatekeepers are afraid that we are powerful, and you are powerful. You are the magician, you're the high priestess, you're the Hierophant. You're not any one of those singularly, you're all of them. And so that's what's changed for me. And so once I realized that, I started to get excited about intuitive development. Once I got excited, things started to open. So you need to get excited about something, and that excitement and that passion will then open it up for you. Okay? And I hear people here talking about like singing and art. When I do my podcast, I want to highlight how different people connect to source, and these people are going straight into some of the stuff that I'll talk about at some point. So yes, there are so many different ways into source energy. It's not just reading cards or going to a place of worship or even practicing yoga. There's so many. So dabble with all the paintbrushes and all the colors until you find your inspiration. Okay? Let's look at the next piece here. All right, so this question is saying, it's very easy for me to gain clarity in knowing for others, but more difficult when doing it for myself. How do you develop the trust in yourself? So what I was talking about here earlier was just basically, especially when I don't want to do something that I know that I need to do something, I was very resistant from moving the equipment from that room into this room, except that I was repeatedly shown that I must do it. So repetition, like a recurring dream, a recurring thought, your guides pushing you, you know at that point that that's something you need to listen to. If you're triggered, if you're pulling cards for yourself, you can sense where your attachment to an outcome exists, and then you can work to release that attachment. But I would advise talking to someone else who's spiritually tapped in. So most of my friends who do something akin to what I do, we talk to each other and read for each other so that there's less attachment to it. But you get better. And what usually happens then is that it's a confirmation of something that you knew you needed to do but didn't want to do, and you were hoping that your intuition wasn't right. So 9 times out of 10, you know what to do. And the other person's just saying, yeah, you're right. And I know you don't want to do this, but you need to do this. Okay? So please hold some of the questions until the end, and I will answer them, and we'll talk about it. But basically, the questions about intuitive development and dream interpretation is the same thing. Practice makes perfect, and there's different ways to tap into it. If one area doesn't work for you, try something different. All right, let's see here what's next. Okay, this is a good one. This is more of a personal question. So this is about my career prior to what I was doing now. It says, I know you mentioned that you worked in the film production industry during that time of production. Were you aware that you had spiritual gifts? And did you have any plans to get out of the stressful environment? And how did I know it was time to get out? All excellent questions. So here's my take on all of this. So I actually worked as a designer, an art director, and an art manager first. And for the predominant portion of my career, and I would say up till maybe the last 4 years I was in production. So everything prior, like 11 years, I was working predominantly as either a designer or someone who led other leaders or designers. So that was by definition tapping in. I would sit down all day, work in Photoshop or Final Cut or whatever, and put together creative art and designs for others. So I was doing it through art. And then later, when I got more into the production and management side and operational side, there was a lot less creativity. And that's what prompted my need to move. I gained invaluable skills during that period, and I'm using them as a producer and a content creator. But I knew that I needed something more where I could be more myself and doing something. You get to a point in your life and your career where you realize, all right, time is of the essence. So initially it was my first parent that passed away, my dad. And I thought when he was ready to pass away, because he was in hospice, he said, where did it go? He used to call me buddy. He's like, where did it go the last 40 years or so? And I thought to myself, I don't want that to happen to me. It was a good gift that he gave me. He showed me that time is finite and that I shouldn't waste a minute. And I didn't. So I decided in that moment I needed to quit, but I waited 6 months to do so because I needed to get a plan together. So I got the epiphany and then I made the plan. And the interesting thing with what I'm doing now is that I originally quit to focus more on my writing, which I successfully released a book. I want to do more. I want to do a podcast and some other things here in the future. But YouTube sort of found me because I originally thought I might be teaching yoga because I was a certified teacher. And I happened to have a channel. This is answering a question someone else asked. And around 2013, I had started to kind of dabble with putting some videos up here and on Facebook, but I didn't take it seriously, like truly doing a monthly grind of video production until I quit my job. And then around May or so of 2015, I really started to do all 12 signs, not just an occasional new moon or weekly or random daily. I thought, let's do it and let's be consistent. And once I did that, I found a new path. And everything, all of the previous sort of things where I thought it didn't come together, it all fit. The different degrees that I had, the different work experiences that I had, the psychic connection that I had, I was like, well, this is what it was all about. I just had to be ready to piece it together. So the creative side of me saw the pattern and the producer side of me did something about it. And so I'm both. And I talked about this before. The number one reason I left corporate is they forced me to choose between the paths. And that's on them, not on me. I'm a creator and a producer. I am creative and I can produce. I shouldn't have had to choose. I could have been a creative director that also led productions or something like that. But I'm happy that I'm here. The universe gives us tower moments to get us out of things. So I had several tower moments when I was working. I just had a tower moment where I was living in my last place. And I kind of got into a much better environment, which I'm grateful for. So we learn and we evolve with all of this. So I also didn't, you mentioned the stress of corporate. Yeah, I got tired of meetings. It reminded me a lot of what I was talking about with the organized religion, where it was like, sit, stand, repeat this, do this, eat this, drink that. It was like you were automaton, like this robot, not really being able to do what you wanted to do, getting permission to buy a stapler, things like that. And it was just sort of like, and this is true of all the jobs, not just any one. So I'm very grateful for all of them, but I had my fill when it came to, I couldn't do one more meeting. I couldn't deal with one more bureaucratic thing. And again, the death of a loved one helped me look at it through a new lens. And every time you go through some big graduation like that, whether it's graduating from school, getting married, losing a loved one, or doing something big in your life and kind of feeling like, aha, there's always then that moment of thinking, I need to shift perspective. There's something more. So I think we're always reaching. And I got to the point where I had reached the glass ceiling, punched through the glass ceiling, but looked around and didn't like what I saw and thought, let's go somewhere else. So I hope that answers your question. All right, let's go to the next question. Let me just pull up the picture-in-picture again so we can continue to look at some of these. All right, so how do you know when to trust your gut or instinct when nothing is clear and it seems clouded? I think the important thing for you to focus on with that is to not overthink. Intuition is a very subtle and natural thing. And when we start to overthink it, we lose connection with it. So my advice to you would be to go with the first thing that you get. And those of you that write poetry, compose music, come up with any sort of brainstorming, even if you're in a corporate environment and you facilitate a brainstorming session, you realize that those early ideas are the kernels. They're the seeds that have the most pack, the most energy. So trust your initial instinct. And then meditate or walk or distract yourself and get the other thoughts out of your head. That's my advice on that. I had a multitude of people asking me this question, and I combined a few of them together. And it basically was saying, have you or would you ever become a mentor for others that need help? And I was like, am I not doing that now? I am doing that. So I feel like I am teaching every day, and this is a place where we can all learn together. So I know what you're asking. You're asking if I would do like a curriculum or something of that nature. And maybe. I'm not called to do that right now. I want to launch a podcast first. And the podcast I have a lot of great ideas for. And I think that's going to help with some of this, with development, with some of the curiosity, with some of these questions that you have for me. So I think that first, and I see a second book in me. And there may be a point where I do sort of like a seminar or something like that. But right now, this is enough. I don't even know where I would fit that in the schedule right now. So, but yeah, I'm already doing it, I think was my sort of wink and nod. I'm like, yeah, we're learning. What is this? What is this Q&A? This is a Q&A, but it's actually a teaching session, right? You're talking to someone who's worked through things and I'm sharing. So just a different version, right? Okay. What could impede growth in a relationship? Lack of communication. I read this earlier and I'm like, communication's key. When you look at any of my readings, I would say that. I don't know how that has to do with intuitive development. I would just say, be yourself always in all relationships, especially if it's intuitive development or whatever. I would say clear, open, and transparent communication is important, okay? And again, practice makes perfect with intuition, and the hidden truths will come to you the more you sort of work with it. Okay. It takes time to, I actually think there are some things that it's good to work with a therapist. So if there's some stuff from the past and you're having difficulties with it, then talk it out. Intuition can help you understand the lesson behind it. So sometimes we have to go through an experience to learn that that's not what we want, to see someone for their true colors, because it just makes us a stronger, more caring person. But there are things, I always say that with my standard disclaimer, that there are times when we need to talk to someone that can really help. So it's not always just a friend, it might be a therapist there. But the other thing here is, I mentioned like self-worth equals net worth a lot. So focusing on daily mantras, this is something everyone can do. And I put a lot of them in my daily reads and in my monthly and weekly videos. So I like to push questions inside out, questions of self-doubt. Why isn't this working? Why doesn't anyone like me? Why shouldn't people like me? Why can't I do it? I'm going to do this. I can do this. And instead of worrying about other people liking you, like yourself, focus on loving and embracing what you have to offer. So that would be my advice on kind of coping with the inner saboteur, the wounded child, is to talk to it and ask it to look at things from a different perspective, and then just state the new perspective and then create it. Okay? Working with words to basically make something powerful happen. If I'm stuck in my life, do I have a process of releasing that stuck energy? So I think the important thing for you is to follow the flow of energy. I always say that. And if you are stuck in one place, try something different. Always shift, always look somewhere else and see what you can do, okay? When I've been most stuck, like in a career, for instance, or even in a friendship or relationship, it's typically kind of like a litmus test that it's time to move on. So if you're stuck and you can't get unstuck, the universe is trying to have you move in another direction. It's like a wall that it's been put up for you, right? Okay. So yes, I had a teacher with respect to learning the tarot. Someone here in Los Angeles, they don't teach anymore and they don't read anymore. But for about 3 months, I studied with them, and then I never stopped practicing. I took the advice of this person to heart, which basically was to do a little bit every day and keep getting a relationship with whatever your connection is to spirit. And what I liked about my teacher was that he just had a great approach. He had fun with intuition, and he didn't question things, and he had a sort of playful energy too when it came to reading. And so I'm a little bit more serious, but I learned to just kind of be in the flow. That's the one thing that teacher taught me, was that we can all do it, and the more we practice, the better we get, and we shouldn't edit ourselves because, well, we are a medium. Basically, think of pages in the court cards in tarot. Their job is to deliver a message, right? Or the high priestess. My job is to deliver a message. I'm not supposed to analyze it. If I get the message, I deliver the message. So that was one thing that that mentor taught me that I never forgot, and it was a good piece of advice. It gets you out of your head. You're here to do a job, and that's basically it. All right, so, okay, this is a good question. So this one is from, let's see, Ms. Shays, and let's see. My question is, what advice would you give to someone just beginning tarot journey that would help them on their path? Once you realize that it was your path, what steps did you take? So I think that First thing that I would say is, if you are passionate about it, you have a really good chance of doing well with it. So good for you, good for knowing what you want. I like that. If you're just beginning a tarot journey, I would say what I did at the beginning was I started reading for some friends who I trusted, and I felt safe and I wasn't going to get rejected. And oddly enough, it ended up going to a point where they were then booking appointments with me because it was accurate, because they valued the advice, and that gave me the confidence I needed to set up a business. So I started off first with like some friends and referrals from friends, and then it kind of built from there. So I would say work with some people that you can trust. And I waited before I told everyone in the family what I was doing. But nobody's rejected me because of my path. Most people are curious. This is a cool thing. Be at ease with who you are and own your path. So when someone says, what do? You say, I'm whatever you want to call yourself, by the way. If you're a healer, if you're a medium, if you're a reader, if you're an intuitive, shaman, I don't care what your adjective is, but pick that and own it and say, I'm a spiritual worker and this is what I do. And then say, what do you do? Don't judge it. Let them react to it. They'll typically want to know more questions. They'll ask you questions. I've gotten so much more support, curiosity, a lot of curiosity, but curiosity in a good way. Like, people have an appetite for spirituality. So own it. And originally I would have set up all of my social handles, and I eventually had to change them with just my name. So if you're going to use a business moniker, you can be stuck with that forever. So make sure that if you want to eventually use your name, just use your name. If you're going to stick with the business, make sure that it's a business that is broad enough to grow with you, and that, if you one day decide to do something more than tarot or runes or aromatherapy or whatever, that it can encompass that umbrella. Because sometimes we don't think beyond the current path. So I originally didn't use my full name, and then I just used my full name because I thought, I thought of leaders out there like, Oprah Winfrey really doesn't have all these different brands. She has like OWN network, but everything was Oprah, and she's attached to it. And Harpo Productions was, it was either OWN or Harpo. So you need to have something that is going to be good enough and big enough to be an umbrella for your brand, is what I would say. And then take it seriously, do it every day, and be professional. That's one thing that I am very keen on, that not everyone, I respect the tools, I respect what I do here, and I try to respect you. And I try to use respectful language because I believe that lends legitimacy to it, and it honors the connection to spirit. So that's something that I do as well. Okay. This one's a really good question. How do you remember past life experiences? I was gifted my past life recollections, and it happened after I awakened. I think a lot of times now you can definitely start to open up. A lot of people can read the Akashic records, or just have an amazing ability to go into past life energies. But for me, what happened was I got to a point where I started to see people as I knew them in the past. So I realized that one person in my life was not an advocate. They had done harm before, and they were planning to try to make life difficult in this incarnation. So I needed to see the two and let it go, so that the cycle didn't repeat. So my guide showed me a past life flashback. Same thing with someone else. And I saw the connection that we had and that we needed to disconnect. Then I was gifted the fact that I've done this on many walks before. And I've talked about this, from astrology to working as a clergy, like as a nun and a priest and a priestess, and all these sort of different paths, and a monk and witch. I've done it all. and a tarot reader. And so I was shown all these different spiritual paths. I think I tried just about every one. It's all different connections to divine energy. So this is why we shouldn't judge any of the walks of life, any language or any religion. They're just windows into the same soul energy, right? So I was given that gift to help me understand that you've done this before, you can do it again, and it's going to be different this time. It's been different every single walk of life. So one thing that I would say that's important with this is don't focus so much on the past. This is the most important moment in time because you're living it, because you're making energetic decisions to affect your future self and your healing karma from the past. You're present and in class right now. So this lifetime matters the most. History is nice to know, and it typically comes up when you need to know it, but you can work on it. You can meditate. You can try to access the Akashic Records or work with someone that can. And then otherwise focus on seeing whatever you need to see. Sometimes it's not the past. Sometimes you can be weighed down by mistakes or choices that you've made in the past, and you're supposed to be able to walk through this life with a fresh set of eyes, unencumbered by fear, doubt, shame, all that jazz that we tend to carry from life to life, right? Okay. Someone else talking about their Egyptian experience, which is cool. What called me to the tarot? It followed me around. So in dreams, first and foremost, I saw a dream where looked like I was in Paris. I was working with like a deck that looked like it was Marseille, but probably just playing cards, but I definitely got Paris. And I saw that I was part of a traveling group. So I might have just kind of worked. This was a trade, like maybe it was a circus, maybe it was a gypsy, maybe I was just a traveler that went from city to city, but I could see that that was my trade, and I was picking up the cards. Some had fallen on the floor. I was like, oh, I did this before. And then they were following me on the streets. I was walking here in Los Angeles, and I was seeing regular, like Hoyle book of cards, like regular playing cards. So I would see like the Joker or a King of Hearts or whatever, like walking down the street. And then my big wake-up call was when I was in a fitting room and I saw the Hierophant. Like literally someone had a tarot card and it was just laying in there. And the Hierophant is, of course, being connected to spirit, me teaching. I was like, all right, let's do this. I've seen it enough. And it also, for me, was a way to empower myself. So I was waking up and there was a lot of energy going through me. And it was a little bit overwhelming at first. And so yoga and tarot actually were two very different tools that I used to become peaceful with my awakening. Yoga, so that the energy was grounded and source was identified. Tarot, so that I had another divination tool besides my third eye to see things. Okay? Someone here is talking about stagnation. Again, a common thread, go where the energy is. So I would say it's really important for you to focus on where you feel connected. And if you don't feel that connection, it's time to move on. My teacher taught me to be a reporter. Like I said, and my background is to report, so I don't focus on doubt. It's not a very good or a kind of like productive skill to kind of cultivate here. Okay, so yeah, I focus on what I can control and what I am receiving and what's opening up to me rather than manifesting fears. What are your thoughts on twin flames? I don't focus on them so much. I think that our life is complete without a twin flame. Twin flames may exist. I like to think of them as divine partnerships or twin stars. So the idea here is that there's two parts of the same whole. There's complementary energies. There's ebb and flow. Sometimes there's someone running and chasing. I think we can definitely talk about karmic relationships. Most of the people in your life you have a karmic connection to, and you're either building positive karma, you're healing negative karma, or you're creating new karma with them. And so every single relationship usually has some karmic component. When we have a lot of that baggage or connection or blessing, then we usually call that a soulmate. Twin flames, like I said, I think they probably exist, but I don't think they should be the focus as much as they are in the spiritual world, because you can have a complete life without meeting your twin flame. You're not meant to meet in every single lifetime. So if you haven't met a twin flame, or you haven't met a deep soul connection, a soulmate, maybe you're supposed to meet someone for the first time. Have you ever thought of that? Like soulmates, somewhere along the journey of our many incarnations, we met for the first time somewhere. They may have been birthed in the same soul family energy, but somewhere along the line, you met them for the first time and you thought, I like you. And then you really, really connected with them. And then you met them again in another life. And you're like, I remember you. I liked you. Let's do this again. So why not just embrace the fact that you could meet the greatest, best possible match in this lifetime? And if it happens to be a soulmate or a twin flame, awesome. And if it doesn't, then it has all the potential to be a future soulmate, right? So that you're never missing out. Just because you don't have a soulmate, it could actually simplify things, because soulmate energy is complicated. My mom was a soulmate for me. in past life. We had many past lives together. But one of the complications was, particularly when I started to awaken spiritually, there was a point where I could almost hear thoughts from her. And then I had to kind of like push energy aside, but I could feel when she was agitated. I knew the day that she had a stroke that something was wrong. I was very connected, and it wasn't just because I was her child, it was because we had past lives. So that's complicated with the parent. It's even more complicated if it's the person that you're married to, because if you argue, if there's things going on, you have this deep connection, and they can get kind of energetically into spaces that others can't. So again, I think it could be a blessing if you don't. It can be a blessing if you do, but you have to really honor the connection and clean the energy between one another. All right? So you are blessed whether you have a soulmate, a twin flame, or you don't, because you're in exactly the lesson that you wanted to undergo in this lifetime. And too much focus is on finding your soulmate. You should love yourself. And I'm just saying that generally speaking. All right. What are some ways to celebrate and draw in the power of the moon phases? We just did a new moon reading, so take a look at that. New moons, you can open up to possibilities. Full moons, you can release energy. And maybe I'll do more of these mini reads because you guys tended to like those. So I might do more lunar readings in the coming months. The short form ones, maybe I'll keep those to like 8 to 10 minutes or something of that nature. Okay. But yeah, the moon doesn't have to rule us, but it definitely does affect us. And so trying to open up in the new moon and release in the full moon, I think is good advice. Okay. Oops, not the final card. We're going back into picture in picture. All right. So have you ever had a situation or circumstance where your intuition came true strongly and you didn't follow it? Totally. Yes. And then you regretted it. If so, how did you process and move past the feelings of regret? Just told myself I wasn't going to do that again. And then I listened. Like I said, that's why we're in this room. I had multiple intuitions showing me that there would be issues, and I listened to it. I was able to avoid, I saw something happening around my garage, like someone hitting my car, and I'm like, just take a break on driving for 2 to 3 days. Intuitively, I knew it was just a danger zone, a hot spot for a couple of days, and then it would pass. So sometimes I'll see things like that and I just pay attention to them now. I listen, even if I don't want to do it, I do it because I know that it's going to happen. And then that is usually frustrating. So once is enough, usually when you've had an experience like that. And when it comes to people in my life, I know if they're telling me the truth or not. And so if they don't tell me the truth, I just start to disengage a little bit with them, because when they don't tell me the truth, then I usually have a dream and the truth is shown to me. And I'm like, okay, that's what it is. I kind of joked the other day with a couple of my fellow medium friends. I'm like, why do people try to pull one over on us when that's kind of like what we do for a living? So just trust yourself and have a laugh and move on. And if you made an error in not listening to yourself, you'll learn it. It's like cards. You have to sometimes know the hits and the misses, and then kind of like how your own system works, and you're just getting better. That's it. So you'll listen to yourself next time. Don't beat yourself up. It's not worth it. Focus on what you're receiving, because the more you focus on that, you're missing on other intuitive downloads. All right. You mentioned that Earth is a place where free will is relatively more available to us. Could you explain this further? Because it sounded confusing. Sure. Okay, let me use a fiction story, for instance. If you're familiar with A Wrinkle in Time, there's a planet where basically Camazotz, where the brain kind of rules everybody and they don't have free will. We're not saying that exists, but there are places in this universe where planets and civilizations and dimensions where there's not as much democratic or free-thinking energy as there is on this planet. Even when things are at their worst, there's always a choice to rebel. There's always a choice to do something different. That's one thing that if you look at all the history of humankind anyway, there's been endless rebellions, right? It feels like that's what we do best, is we go to war, we fight, we do something that's not popular. We're constantly pushing and trying different things. Sometimes we're getting ourselves into trouble. Sometimes we're innovating and discovering new things. So humanity at its best has so much potential, and it's beautiful and it's expansive. At its worst, it tends to repeat history But I would say the cool thing is we get the choice. We get the choice to stay or to go, to do the right thing or to do the thing that we know is a temptation. And it doesn't exist everywhere. There's some places where the dimensionally, energetically, here's a good example, a great example. So heaven, there are levels. And heaven isn't the only sort of energetic space that you can exist. There are other higher realms, but all the angels have to follow one rule. And it's magnanimous, but you either follow in and file in suit or you go somewhere else. So that's a great example of a place where there's not as much free will. You can still choose to go. You're not trapped, but you have to follow certain rules in certain energetic planes. And different energetic planes have different rules and different things that kind of guide them. So hopefully that helps. But that's an example we can all kind of connect with, is that in organized religion, there are rules. And there are rules, again, some of these are man-made, but human-made, I should say. But that's an example of a realm where it's wonderful, but you can't do anything. Like, for instance, you wouldn't kill someone in heaven. I mean, you're already spirit, but you wouldn't do something harmful or you would get ejected into a lower plane of frequency. So that's kind of a great example there. But there are other more complicated ones, but I'm just trying to keep it simple. All right, let's go on to the next one. The cool thing with this is every day is a choice. Every word, every moment, every decision is a choice. So you're making new things up as you go along. You're a writer, a constant writer in your life. Okay, at what point did I decide I've been doing the channel and I used to do readings. I stopped doing readings because I wanted to develop the channel more, because there's a lot of imposters out there, because it's also exhausting, and I needed to kind of decide where the energy was going. So I wanted to do more for all of you, and I can do more in an hour or two here with, we have about 500 people here, and then maybe on replay there'll be, a few thousand that watch it. That's a lot more of an impact or a splash that I can make than if it's just a one-on-one, right? So when people were asking about teaching, that's why I'm choosing this, because I can teach and reach more people by doing the videos. And also, again, because of all of the imposters out there, I needed to stop doing that so that I could easily just say I don't do private readings. So there you go. Hopefully that helps. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Have you ever astral traveled when you think you're falling back in your bed? So yeah, astral projection is something that I have experienced before. It's something you have to practice. A lot of times what happens is you can accidentally slip into that state. So sure, and the more you practice, the more you can get better with that. You could try to remote view the moon or something, for instance, and focus on that. Something fun, something where you're not getting in anyone's way or anything like that. So yes, I've astrally projected, but you've got to practice it. Yes, it's normal to kind of slip in and out of an astral projection. It's just your body showing you that you can do more energetically. So feel free to do that if that's something that you want to do. Okay. How to develop creativity. I would say for this one, again, don't edit yourself. We're all creative. And don't limit yourself to one type of expression. So go paint with a bigger stroke and have fun, and just don't overthink it so much. Do I have recurring dreams? Yes. But typically they're recurring because I'm not listening to spirit. The minute I listen to spirit, they stop recurring. And I just talked about one, moving the location of where I'm working. And then the dreams went away. Usually what my dreams will show me is areas of safety and opportunity or danger, things that I should embrace, things that I should avoid, things that I'm missing. And if I don't pick up on it in my day-to-day life, they come through in dreams and they repeat until I act upon them. And let's see, do I remember ones that I had years ago? I didn't have recurring ones as much as a child. I have them more as an adult. So for me, they are clairvoyant. They're not just a repetitive dream. And I think a lot of them, the subconscious is trying to communicate with you. So meditation will usually help you alleviate any sort of repetitive dream. And you can pull cards, you can talk to someone. There's a lot of other things that you can do to decode the repetition, but it's not accidental. Sometimes we fixate on things, but usually there's a message there to be had. Okay, that was a very good question. All right, what was the final thing that made you confident enough to do this solely for a living? I woke up one day and I thought well, there were two things. So one was I'll just leave this up so people know what we're looking at. So, and I'll fix the typo. So I had a teacher here in LA that I still occasionally will go and work with, but he kind of gave me a wake-up call and said, Nicholas, if you don't make this change happen now, when will you? There is think of it as a plane, a departing flight that's happening right now. I don't know when the next departing or connecting flight will be here. You need to do something soon if you want to do this. And he was right. And it was good that I did it when I did it, because just any number of things, like I think meeting the right people, having the right connections, being able to have things kind of take off when they did, he was right. And then also there comes a point where you have, like fewer days ahead than you have behind you, and you start to think, I need to start making smarter choices because I don't want to waste any more time. That was the main thing. At the corporate job and all the different sort of just general 9-to-5s that I was working, so much wasted time at all of them, either because of poor project planning, because of overly communicating, overly meeting, because of work that was just tossed away because people didn't trust it. You did good work and they're like, oh, let's just stick with what we've got. Like so many examples where you just went through all these hoops and it was all disposable and nothing except for experience and wisdom and strength and internal knowledge. But I don't have a lot to show for that period of my lifetime, except again, I can edit videos, I can design, I can do most of the stuff on my own, and that's all cool. But that work product doesn't exist because of I worked in a digital space, and digital, it's very short-lived. So that was it. I wanted to make more of a lasting impact. I wanted to reach more people. I wanted to feel more connected, and I realized I wasn't going to get it doing what I was doing. And so it was a survival thing. Forget about confidence. I wasn't happy. I just told, again, my dad had passed away. It was just my mom. I said, I've got enough saved up for X amount of time. I think this is enough to launch a business. At the very least, I just can't do what I'm doing anymore and I need to take a break. She's like, do it. Yeah, I'm behind you. She never second guessed me. She never asked any questions. That was awesome. So throughout time, she got better. Like when I was younger, it was maybe a little bit more challenging. But as we got older, yeah, she was totally on board, and I so appreciate that. So I had a little bit of support there, but ultimately I have and I am continuing to kind of do this on my own because it's what I'm called to do. And I believe that if you work hard, if you believe in what you do, success has a way of finding you. I didn't chase success. I met it, I guess, maybe. And I just wanted to do what I wanted to do and be my authentic self. That's the best piece of advice I can give to all creators, all entrepreneurs. You have to like what you're doing because you're going to do it a lot. And if you don't like it, why are you doing it? Follow the passion and everything else usually falls into place. Same thing flies with this one. I planned, by the way. So the next step here is I knew that I needed to, so we'll focus on this first piece. How did I know how to take that leap? I would say I looked at my bank account. So 2 years prior to quitting my job, I wanted to quit, but I needed to work 2 more years. 1 year I paid down a student loan, a significant amount, so that wouldn't be hovering over me. I paid down all my other debt that I might have, revolving credit and all of that. So I erased it and then I saved for 1 year. So 1 year I paid things down, 1 year I saved, and I saved enough. And I was very frugal before that I had the dollar amount that was necessary to launch a business, which takes money, and pay rent, and take care of myself. So I sat down and did my finances and figured out how long I had to work, and then I quit. And then I knew that when I quit, I could afford to quit. I didn't just quit without a plan. I was super Capricorn about it. That's my ascendant. So I wrote it all out, got my Excel sheets, and I've still done that when I've needed to take a big leap. I'm like, is the money there? Is the time there? Is this going to work? Okay, so plan it out. I did one other thing here. I'm just kind of highlighting this. So the other thing that I did was it's kind of like a layer cake. So when I was deciding to leave, I was getting my yoga certification and working with the tarot teacher in tandem. I did the tarot first, and then about a year later, I did the yoga. And then when I quit, I had all of these things built up and pulled them into what I do. So I knew I was going to quit. I had to stay. I did a good job at what I was doing, but then I started to get training in other areas that called to me from an interest perspective. And they were very, I didn't realize at the time how bold and bizarre it was. When human resources talked to me, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I swear it's what I want to do. But yeah, just believe in yourself, do the planning that you need to, and then eventually you just have to take that connecting flight. And that was the best piece of advice that healer and teacher brought to me. Have you ever purchased a deck of cards that give you bad energy? No. But I've gotten some, I usually don't buy decks that I don't like if I see the pictures. So I will Google them. We're so fortunate now that we can do that. Like when I first moved to LA, there was a place here called the Bodhi Tree, and they actually had some decks of cards and you could look at them. But almost no places now have a deck that you can like kind of go through. But you can see everything on Amazon and on the internet. So I can tell when I look at a deck if I like the imagery and if it feels light or dark energetically to me. I can tell a lot about the illustrator or the deck creator based on that. I'm like, oh, this would be more for shadow work. This would be more for love. This would be more general, because I can see that. So I typically save myself that issue by just looking at it and thinking, do I vibe energetically with where the designer was at, the deck designer? Because I need to find someone that's in the same energetic zone as I am, so that it's kind of like speaking a language or a variation of it. So like if you're in Scandinavia and you speak Danish, you'll understand a certain amount of Swedish, for instance, or whatever, but it's not a one-for-one. So it's that kind of thing. Like you need to make sure that it's at least in the same language as you, and then you'll be able to push out the different zones. Now, I think that you can get an attachment of energy. So I don't own pre-owned decks for that reason. I bought one that was part of a larger collector's collection, but they never opened it. And so it was part of an estate sale. I let it sit in salt for like a week. I had salt crystals all around it. I cleansed it, but there was no connection to that person because they never touched it. So I'm very specific about not taking someone else's deck that they've used. And I'm probably at a point where I wouldn't want people to shuffle my deck anymore because I just want my energy on the cards. So keep your energy where it needs to be. If you're going to read publicly, have a deck that's more like the public deck, and then have your own cards that are for you. I think that will help you. I've had someone that has sent stuff to me with not great intentions, and I just gave the deck to someone else. So it's mostly someone else's projected energy. It's not like the cards themselves are bad. Cards are just a reflection of either who's used them or who designed them. And so if you like the person that did that, then you're safe for the most part. So that's it. Mostly good. I have about 6 decks that I need to find new homes, and I'll do that someday. But yeah, I purchased them and I'm like, no, there were various reasons or I just keep them for a rainy day. They don't have the sort of vibe that I was looking for. So that happens, but thankfully, no. And I think if you are cautious about it, if all else fails, just get Rider-Waite-Smith. You don't have to go to a unique deck. You can get everything that you need here. So that'll help you if you're curious about that. Okay. You can cleanse a deck too. Like I said with the other one, it just takes time. And then one thing that I would do is you keep pulling I would pull the card at the top and I would say, is the energy clear yet? And then like for this one, I've got the Knight of Swords ready to go. This deck is ready to read with. But if I was getting something like 4 of Pentacles or the Devil or something like that, I'm like, this needs some more cleansing. We'll keep cleansing it until it tells me it's ready, until I feel good with it. Okay? All right. I believe that one can write their own story. Okay. How do I balance the energies? Okay. You're basically asking me, you believe you have free will and the cards can show you something. How does the two things fit together? Well, I would say this, the free will always is stronger than what the cards show. So if you believe that you can do something, the cards are going to show you the challenges that you may experience. So it may be harder than you think to launch a business, meet a partner, fix something that doesn't feel like it's where it needs to be in your life. But if you want to do it enough, it's just showing you the necessary work. So I would say your ability to really focus on potential is where the power is. Okay, the free will always trump out the actual card, but the card is going to keep it real, and it's going to show you how much work it's going to take. It's really a question of your perseverance. Okay. Is it possible to be feeling that you're channeling an archangel? Absolutely. Yeah. You can definitely connect with them. Sometimes you're going to hear their voices. Sometimes you're just going to get the energetic knowledge that they're trying to give you. But no, you can definitely work with archangels. I've worked with Uriel quite a bit actually in the past. And Uriel is a very direct and very sort of strong archangel. I heard its voice, but sometimes you can just feel that you need to do something and you feel that angelic push. So trust it. Okay. Apollo, who's peacefully sleeping in the back, he's starting to enter his junior, senior years, which I got him about 5 years ago, 2017, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, 5 years ago. He was approximately 2. He's 7 or 8 now. Some arthritis is starting to step in, and he's getting a little older now. I hope he's here for a while to come. He's just such a lovely presence in my life. So yeah, he's over the hill, but he's eternally a puppy to me. And the best decision that I made by far was to rescue this, adopt him, but he's a rescue. So yeah, there you go. All right, and how did he come into my life? I manifested him. I waited 2 years after I quit my job and started this one to call a dog into my life. I put a little wish out into the universe, more than a little wish. I sat there for like an hour and manifested. I felt the presence and I said, tell me when you're ready. And then when he was up for adoption, I just got this feeling and I went online and he was the third dog. There were 2 other ones that I couldn't get because they were adopted before me. By the time I expressed interest, they're like, we're sorry, this one's already been adopted. And then I found him. He went through a lot in his youth. He was abused. He was hit by a car. He was in the LA shelter, had to get hip surgery. He went through 3 different foster homes, all before I found him. So he's had a rough life, which is why I spoil him. And he's fine right now, as you can see. Okay. When did you delve into reading tarot in I'm trying to remember. I picked up a deck of cards in 2010, but I didn't really, it wasn't until 2013 that I felt comfortable enough to do it. That's when I wanted to learn. That's when I was like, I sought out a teacher because it can be a little daunting. So I wanted to talk to someone and have someone guide me through it at the beginning. I don't think you need a teacher, but it definitely helped. It helped sort of destigmatize, demystify, and just make it fun. So that's why. I gave some advice on start with friends at the beginning. Start with yourself first. Why is waiting the hard part? Because you need to detach from the outcome a little bit. And if you're focusing on want versus need, that's part of it. So get to the point where you're not as interested in it will come faster. Focus on something else and it will manifest faster. You know your dreams are past lives when you wake up with an incontrovertible feeling like this is real, plus pieces of data that pan out. Like, so I had a past life where I was in Etruria, and I didn't even remember that word. It's Tuscany, basically, and it was the basis for Italy before Italy was formed. So a lot of the deities then informed Roman mythology. They were kind of adopted into Roman mythology. But so one of my earlier lives was in Etruria, and I saw myself with my sort of tribe, spiritual tribe. We were traveling by night. I was an astrologer. and I was pointing at the stars, and we were kind of looking at them reflect in the waters, and then I pointed to a cliff and I said, that's where our home should be. And then I did some research, and I'm like, the Etruscans actually were cliff dwellers, and I didn't study that in history. And yeah, it was just like, wow, that was so distinct. So I was an astrologist in Etruria a long, long time ago. Then there was another one, and this gets into the sort of way out there realm. But we've been visited before, like I've seen visitations, and Egypt was an example where we had a higher civilization that helped us do what we did. There was another one in Mesopotamia, and it was not so good. I saw us being used for labor, and I saw a gigantic pyramid at nighttime, and I picked up this skull that wasn't human, and I woke up and I gasped, and I heard Mesopotamia in my head. So I'm given locations sometimes, like distinct locations of where I lived, and then what happened there, or kind of like what my function was. This one was weird because I was a future archaeologist looking at the past, but it all came together. So I've also seen that I had a lifetime in India as well, like as a doctor. So sometimes I wasn't always doing spiritual work, but I also did healing work of some nature. So the dreams are so specific, like ridiculously specific, and I wake up. In that one, I was almost sweating because I was nervous, because I knew that was a dangerous place to be, like Mesopotamia. I really wanted to go back to Etruria. It looked like it was a beautiful lifetime. I had another beautiful lifetime when I was a monk, and I was just tending to the rose garden, basically, and it just seemed super peaceful. And it explained why I have like decent handwriting and why I like to work with plants still. So I got all these specific pieces that also fit in with my personality in this lifetime. I've kept pieces of the past in this current soul incarnation. So it's not just like, I don't just see like I dated this person or something like that. I see like life, like a place that I lived, a location, a job, a function, and a feeling that I got in that lifetime. I have seen lovers and things like that, and friends, but I more specifically see the things that I did. I've always been a very service-oriented person, so they wanted to show me pivotal moments. And again, possibly 10 different spiritual paths, different lifetimes that everything seemed to be working with spirit or healing. So it's kind of interesting. Not every life, but a lot. You know that they're real because they're real. That you wake up and there's too much information, and it's all retained. Like I can see those dreams as clear as when they happened. They didn't leave me because they're soul memories and they were ingrained in there. So you'll know. You won't have to ask me. You'll wake up and think, oh my God, I saw this and I felt that, and then I knew this person, and they had a different face and a different gender, but it was that person. My father was my sister or something like that. It'll be something wacky, but you're talking to them and you're calling them by their present name. All this sort of weird stuff can happen like that. Okay? Can we help ourselves connect and evoke visions of the past lives? Yes, through meditation and programming. So before you go to bed, you can say, I'm open to see something from the past that is relevant, that will help me, etc. You might want to ask that it's not painful, or that if there's pain, that you understand why you're seeing it. I've been blessed to mostly see positive things. The only time that I saw something tricky is when someone was trying to do me harm. So my advice is to make sure that you clarify what you're trying to see, because we do forget for a reason. I started in 2013 on YouTube. That's the channel start date too, you'll see that. And 2015 is when I started producing most of them. Most of my initial first year videos I took offline. They're still they're on private, but 2016 is when I had the format down and I liked what I was doing. So I think maybe December of 2015 still up, but everything else, 2016 on, the format that you love and know is kind of there. But I started 2013, and then 2015 is when I was doing 10 to 15 minute videos where it was the 10 cards and an extra catalyst or something like that. And I think I had channeled messages from the beginning. It was just a card at the beginning. So that was kind of how it started. Do you identify as a spiritual teacher and not? That's somewhat, I don't even like that word that you use there. I think you need to erase it from the vocabulary. So we are spiritual teachers, and we're connected to source, and just avoid those words. So yeah, I don't even understand the question. Yeah, so I would say basically if you are connected to source and you're healing and helping people, then leave the judgment at the door. And anyone that has the judgment, tell them to leave it at the door as well. Okay. Oh yeah, someone was asking a specific question about dream interpretation. What I wrote on this was go general. So my advice for you on this is, rather than trying to take all of these little pieces apart, it was a very specific question that wouldn't help the masses on this one. I would say the important thing for you is to focus on, how did I feel when I saw this? What does this symbol represent? And sometimes a dream is just a dream. We have bits and pieces of our mind that is basically stuck. Oops. So we have bits and pieces of our mind that get stuck, and sometimes we just have to kind of clear that out. So sometimes it's just that. But when it's very specific or it's repetitive, I would say go into the totem a little bit like I do. You can watch any of my videos to sort of look and see how I'm able to basically focus a little bit more on understanding why something might come up through, like historically. If an animal totem comes through and it has traits, if you see that animal in your dream, it's telling you to embody the traits. If you see something like a butterfly or a moth, it can be transformation. If you see something like a child, it could be about birthing or creating something new. If you get something playful, it might be telling you to take a break, you know? If there's a bunny rabbit, there could be abundance. So I look at symbols, not just like the script of the dream, which sometimes doesn't make any sense. I look at the symbol, I evaluate the feeling, and I take those and I highlight them. All right. Someone having some negativity going in their life and saying, like, how do I know how to, like, what, if I feel like something bad's going to happen, how can I see it and how can I do something about it? My sort of advice on this one would be to simply focus on what you're also able to manifest that isn't negative, because if you wait for something bad to happen, you're welcoming it in on some level. So if you get an intuition that you need to do something, do it. If you feel like you don't trust someone or something, disconnect from that. And then instead focus on what you are also feeling drawn towards. We're not just focusing on the repellent energy, we're also looking at the magnetic energy. So that was a missing piece to that. I talked about practicing for development of intuitive gifts as well. All right. This is a good question. I'll highlight this one. Someone's saying, how do you know if I've done other Q&As? They're actually on my channel. So you'll see that I did one at 300. I basically every 100, and now because it was taking a while, I was like, let's just do it at the 25K mark so that we all have something fun to look forward to. But at 100, 200, and 300,000, I did Q&As. So you can check them. They're on my main page. You can do a search for Milestone. I'll see if I can do a post later if it's hard to find. So yeah, every 100,000, and maybe if you like these every quarter, I'll do them. Hopefully then we can keep them a little shorter. Today, I'm just giving back and we're hanging out. So I'm gonna see if I can get through these a little bit faster. Let me see what the next question is. Okay, let's see. I should have said one per person because some of you asked 2 or 3. So I'm gonna pick the one that I like here. Let's see. I'm gonna go with the first. How can you distinguish your ego from thoughts from source or your team of light? That's a good question. It's a great question. So how can you figure out if it's you or if it's source? Well, this is one way. So if you're feeling something and you want to analyze it, pull a card and see if you're getting the same energy coming through with that. If you're attached, you'll feel triggered. So sometimes we have to do something we don't want to do, and it could be break up, move, say I'm sorry, any number of things. And you feel that sort of resistance, but there's like a knowing and then a wanting. And you want to focus more on the knowing and take the energetic, take the emotional piece out. You're focusing more on what it is that needs to be focused on. You can acknowledge how you feel, but it's the download that matters more. So the more you practice, the more you realize you're human. You're spiritual, but you're in a human body. So you can feel a certain way, but then the free will enters in and you choose what to do about it. Are you going to do what you're guided to do or what you feel like you want to do? So focusing on pulling those 2 layers away a little bit so you can then deal more with what's right or what's best or what's the highest good. And then I would say, again, with the cards, it would help you. Okay, let's see here what's next. Someone's asking me about private appointments. This was another Patreon question. Not doing those right now, not planning to go back to those for the aforementioned reasons, because I have a chance to really connect with all of you on a more frequent basis. And I think that that's a beautiful gift, and it frees up my energy, and it gives me a chance to recuperate my time and energy. So if and when I ever did that again, I would make a formal announcement, but there's no plans. And in fact, because of all of the people that pretend to be me, I want to keep it much clearer that engagements like this are how you can connect with me. And I do have an existing series of meditations. This person's asking if I would build upon that more. You know, you guys kind of helped me decide not to do that because they don't perform well. I have to do videos that also have traction here. So the meditation ones that I did were not very popular, even though they're very useful. So what I've done instead is that you see the singing bowl behind me. I incorporate a little bit of that in there. I might do some meditations in the shorts, or maybe from time to time I could do a shorter term one. I think if we do something with guides, that would be a really great opportunity to have a meditation for meeting your guide or connecting with source. So I think if it's appropriate, yes. But I'm probably not going to focus as much. I did a lot and I didn't see a lot of engagement with it. So if that's something you guys want to see more of, when I do a video like that, just engage with it a little bit more. And if you like it, I'll do more of it. It's basically, it's a democracy here. You guys help me choose. I think I sort of talked about how I got started on this path. This person is also asking about my journey here. I think I talked a good deal about this actually. So for me, I got to a point where I was not connected to a 9-to-5 job. I needed more than success in a traditional sense or acceptance in a traditional sense. And I wanted to do something that just really felt like it was making a difference in others' lives. And plus I was waking up. I remember I was seeing and feeling things that like were just not talked about. And I thought, well, I'd like to make some videos that talk about some of the stuff that I've been through. So let's put this stuff out there and see what happens. So maybe we'll do another video on awakening, because I think that's important. It's not always fun. I saw like some TikTok showing a person going a little crazy during their awakening, and that's normal. Feeling like they're ungrounded or feeling like it's just too much and you want to close it all up. So the awakening was actually pretty stressful at the beginning, and I needed yoga and I needed tarot to ground me. And then I needed a year or two before I could do something like this. So it took some time to kind of build up the building blocks of where I'm at, but I'm happy that I'm here. We're almost through all of these actually, because I'm at the Patreon questions here. So let me see. Another question about the career moment, which I've talked about. I was not vocal. There was a question about, and it's almost like too much information, but for me, I didn't make my decision to move on about the place that I was working. My piece of advice here is if you are going to move on, you should do it for yourself, not because of the politics at the office or anything. Typically, they're more of an agitator, but they're not necessarily the sole reason. They're helping you get out, but that's going to exist everywhere. So what I said when I quit, and it's true, and that's why it was effective, I'm at a point in my life where I have to produce my own work, where I have to do something authentic for myself, use my voice. I've done a lot in my life to help others and to help them accomplish their vision. I want to accomplish my vision now. And if you quit like that, people can't get upset. It was just basically, no, it's personal growth. I can't stay and grow anymore. The only way that I can do this is to break off and do it on my own. So that's why I did it. I wanted more control. I wanted more autonomy. Okay. Someone asking me about workshops, perhaps. Let's see. This is a good question. I feel like I've talked about this, but what are 3 to 5 decks that you would recommend for someone who's a beginner? Let's just start with one. but and I have two different versions of it. I always have the Radiant Rider-Waite deck here right by my side. Highly recommend it. This is a travel one that I would take with me. It is beautiful. It is the same energy that you would get in Rider-Waite Smith, but the illustrations are a little bit better. The people on it might have slightly more softer features, but all in all, I think you should learn with a deck like this. So this was, oddly enough, my first deck was this. So, and I always keep it by me. I don't use it as much. Maybe for today's single, or for tomorrow's single card pull, I'll use it. But this is Robin Wood. Robin Wood is great if you want a slightly different take on tarot and you don't want to have to see the traditional sort of imagery. Let me see, like the Three of Swords is pretty, and some of the illustrations are just, even like the Wheel of Fortune, Death card, they're very nice images. So I would say Robin Wood's great. But I would recommend just start off with Rider-Waite Smith. This is my favorite. Modern equivalent for that one that didn't exist when I was doing this was the Modern Witch. Because it is Rider-Waite Smith as well, it has a little bit more representation throughout the cards, and the colors are really bright. So this may be like the updated version of this if I was learning nowadays. I really like it. Cardstock is pretty sturdy. So these two are great to start with. Let's leave it at that. So I would say Radiant Rider-Waite or the Modern Witch. Even though it's called the Modern Witch, there's not much about witchcraft or anything in this one. It's just a really beautiful deck that is very much in the vein of Rider-Waite Smith. The third, here's the third. Actually, I'll give you number 3, Light Seers. If you have even a slight aversion to traditional tarot imagery, this one's gorgeous. And it still has most of the main messages. Let's give Apollo some love because he's having fun in the background. Hey buddy, what's going on? I know, we'll go on a walk soon, I promise. Thank you. All right. All right, we're almost wrapping up here. Sorry, a couple cards fell on the floor a moment ago. Let's see what else is here. Let's see. This is an interesting question. Okay, so how do you balance your work here with day-to-day life? Apollo is great. I take 3 to 5 walks with that little guy per day. I have some friends that are in the industry. I have some friends that are not in the industry. So when I say that, I mean peers, like other people that are readers or intuitives. So it's good to talk to them about what they do. And then I have just regular friends that knew me before I did what I'm doing right now. And they don't even talk to me about what I do. We talk about regular stuff, movies and books and the world. So friends, activities, and the dog. And then other things that I like to do, like reading, writing, or watching something. I've been so busy working that I haven't even had a chance to watch beyond episode 1 of The Sandman, and I want to definitely finish that up. But geeking out on stuff that I enjoy. And this is a full-time path. Have you seen how much work I do per day on this channel? This is all I do, folks. So thank you so much for supporting me and allowing me to do it. Without your support, I would have to go back to corporate, and that would not make me happy. So thank you for letting me be here for you and doing some exciting stuff. All right. Let's see here. Someone else asking, this is from Patreon, asking a little bit about coincidence, which I don't believe in, by the way, versus spiritual guidance. I have found that there's no such thing as, I don't really believe in serendipity. I believe in synchronicity. I believe that we open up experiences to teach us and to guide us. So when we become awake and aware and we embrace them, you realize there was nothing accidental about them. Running into someone at the grocery store, getting a pink slip, opening up to a news article and finding something that you're going to be interested in, you were guided to all of those different events so that then something else could open up. I think that believing that there's a purpose and finding that purpose in everything can help you as well. Let's see. Yes, I talked to other readers. All readers would confirm this. When you read for yourself, sometimes you can lack that objectivity. So it's always nice, I talked about this earlier, to talk to someone else who's in a similar path and can just sort of say, yeah, I'm picking up on that as well. I especially enjoy speaking with anyone that's a medium because they can see and feel what I'm seeing and feeling. So they'll be like, yep, I see that too. And that's all you need sometimes, right? This is a great question. And again, I think we're almost done. I think there's like 2 more and then I'll take 1 or 2 live and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so what tarot spreads did you use to learn or would you recommend? And then advice for a younger self. So we'll turn the camera down for a second on this one. Yeah, let me just pick up a couple of cards. I hit this when I was getting things ready earlier. Okay, so simpler is better is my advice on this one. So let's take a look at the table. I think that when you're reading cards, we're going to do a little reading for today here. So for those that are present or watch this later, what's the single message right now that wants to come through? So a single card can give you so much to focus on. So what we have right here is a message around community. So the 10 of Cups, the message for today is that there's a lot of love and support around you. Sometimes it's difficult for you to have proper barriers or say no. Sometimes it's hard to ask for the help that you deserve, but it's always there for you. But anyway, one card, as you can see, can give you quite a lot. And it's better to not get overwhelmed because there's already you have to do some work here because I read reversals. You don't have to, and there's nothing wrong if you don't, but I find like I get much more out of it by reading a reversal. So first I would analyze the upright. Friends, love, marriage, connections, networking, all really positive. In the reverse, it can sometimes feel overwhelming to meet the needs of these people, to serve them, to attract them, et cetera, et cetera. So I think 1 is enough. This is a great way to start. Get a single card. You can ask a very distinct and very specific question and then read it. If you want to understand insights into something, like today, whenever your today is that you're watching this, we'll give a very specific question. What's the opportunity? And how have you what have you done in the past? What are you doing today? What is it opening up? So you could do a 3-card pull for this. These are the 2 spreads I would begin with. So of course we're doing an intuitive reading. Notice how these are all reversed. We're going to just pull them up, right? So with the reversals, it's just showing questions or doubt. But this is all about intuitive development, and trusting yourself. Many of you have done a lot for others. You have that grounding connection that's going to help you. But we need to go beyond the lower chakras and go into the upper chakras. So this is really about opening up the higher realms. You're also very, very busy. So I would say, how can you fit this into a life of responsibility and busyness is kind of what I would get from the spread if we're kind of reading it for the audience that's present today. But I don't need more than 3 to get a feel for something. I don't need more than 1 to get a yes, no. That's why the final card is a yes, no. That's why I can talk for 1 minute on the daily reads. I could actually, fun fact, I could probably talk for like 3 to 5 minutes for the 1 card readings. I have to really trim it down, make sure that I'm highlighting different parts of it. But I think to practice 1 card, that's what my teacher had us do for a while. 1 card. Even before we'd learned everything in the deck, he would say, just pull the card and tell me what you feel when you see the images on the card. So as you're learning the minor and the major arcana and the suits and the court cards, because there's a lot to kind of wrap your head around, 1 card is more than enough. Do that for maybe up to 3 months. Just 1 card and keep learning the suits, keep learning what they mean, keep practicing all of that. Once you're like, I want to learn more, then start to pull a couple extra cards. So I'd say 1 and then 3, and everyone should know the Celtic Cross. I think those 3 spreads, you can read anything you need to in this universe. There's a lot of other ones. You can do like the whole astrological thing. I don't do that one, but you can make up your own. I actually kind of work with a modified spread that I do for the monthlies. I do health, wealth, love, and destiny. I have a catalyst. So I added additional positions that mean something to me as the reader. So you can do that. And absolutely should. So I kind of view the Celtic as the main dish, and then these are the sides. Whatever else we need to look at. All right. So that answers that question. And let's see here. Thank you for someone's just commenting on the setup that I have here. Nice compliments. So my background was, I went to like Emerson and I learned how to do film production. So I always was working with equipment. At that time, it was Avid Avid and Media 100. These were predecessors for like Final Cut Pro and Premiere, which are a little bit more commonplace now. So, but I was learning on early nonlinear editing software, and in undergraduate, I also took classes in broadcast journalism and things like that. So, lights and cameras, I always kind of knew how to do that, and I just needed to figure out how to make it work with the computer. I actually talked to another streamer here that does that, and they gave me some feedback. But yeah, trial and error. I just bought equipment and played around with it, and then figured it out. And I do a lot of my impromptus with that. In fact, one of the things that I want to test is if I can go a little bit higher in quality, like maybe one level up. So we'll do that. I need to get I'm doing it on Wi-Fi today and it's working, but I need to get them to put a connection here. So once that connection's in, we'll try that. I think I got through all the questions today. I wanted to do that as a thank you for all the Patreon supporters. Oh, there's one more, Anne. Okay, let's see. What's this? Too many pieces to it. So let's see. If you were starting today's social media landscape, what would you make different choices on about the platforms? Okay, this is good. This is now I feel like we're definitely into the teaching zone here. So this is the last question. You have to use multiple platforms. So when I started, it was enough maybe to do Facebook or YouTube, but like now, I feel like you have to embrace short form content. So TikTok, I'm working on it now, but like I probably should have done even more on TikTok. So embrace the short form stuff. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and Facebook or Instagram Reels, whatever. All that stuff should be a part of your regular output. It can be teasing content or it can be specific. I decided teasing was laborious. So earlier in the year, and I took all these down, and I think like maybe it was the end of last year, but I was doing edits for like the key moment from the video. Because I don't have a team, that would require me to go back through and I would spend another 30 minutes on that. I used to sit down and do recaps. That's what the video's for. So I was like, no, I'm just going to create content, and then the form of content, the length of content that you want to digest, you will. If you're short attention span, you can do 1 minute stuff. Hopefully I can start to grow the 10-minute stuff, and then I do longer form. Can't make everyone happy. I actually have people in the comments that are like, someone the other day, I just deleted it because it was rude, but they were like, please be mindful of my time. You're wasting my time. Like do it faster. I'm like, seriously? There's timestamps. You could just click the timestamp. So what I've learned to do is water off a duck's back. You can't worry about this stuff. Do what you're passionate about, but you should be doing multiple formats. It can't just be long, and it can't just be short, and it can't just be one platform. And I think you should be at minimum doing it on, right now, yes, of course, YouTube. I got my t-shirt on today, but I would say YouTube, Instagram is really good, but not as good for growth. I would say TikTok is where I see the most growth, TikTok and YouTube. Facebook and Instagram are not growing as much right now, and I don't know where those platforms are going. You can't ignore them, but I notice it's harder to get growth started there. TikTok, it's very easy if you're starting, but also go where the community is. So each of you might find that a certain platform is more welcoming for your type of message. So go where the energy is and go where the growth is. All right, that pretty much sums that up. Let me make sure that I answered everything. I think I did. Okay, so with that being said, I said I might be able to take a couple. Before we wrap up, put out a couple of questions here and I'll see if any of them are calling to me. I'm only going to take maybe 2 or 3. I want to wrap up in 10 minutes. So let's see here. All right, Tess has a good question. What kind of questions do you ask your cards, or can you ask your cards? Yeah, that's kind of weird. I wouldn't ask direct questions, not subjective ones per se. if you ask what kind of person you are, you're going to need to at least pull 3 cards on that to see like what the work has been in the past, where you're at in the present, what the opportunities are in the future. What I would say instead is be specific. What's my biggest block? What holds me back? That would be a question. Where is the hidden opportunity for me right now? What do people think of me? What's my reputation? How do I come across to others? Ask questions like that because the cards can give results for those questions. Am I a good person? That is so out there. Or what kind of person I am? You need a Celtic cross. I take it back. You need a Celtic cross for that. Be specific. The more specific, the fewer cards you need. And the easier it is for you to make a decision. And stop pulling after you've pulled those cards. I have a rule of thumb on the dailies. I shuffle, and even if it's a repeat, I read it. That's the card we were supposed to get. I choose it from whatever deck I get, and that's the card, and that's the position. I don't pull it until I get a card that I like. We got the Magician twice in this month, and it was reversed twice. That was the message. We still need to hear it. So if you get a card, read the message, and until we kind of integrate it, we keep getting those messages either for ourselves or for others. To understand the meaning of the cards, you can meditate with them. You can read up on them. Learning with someone helped. The teacher that I had was great because they spent maybe 4 or 5 days going through the cards, but we split it up. Like I would say, I think you need to learn all the different energies of the deck, like learn about the elements, what the elements mean before you learn the face values of all of them. Go with the majors first, then you can break it down by the different suits. Save the swords for last. And then just take some time and look at each image. And then there's so much on the internet now. Just make sure the source is good. But there's a lot of interpretations out there. But yeah, it could be something at some point where it's good to meet with a mentor too. But I think just simply meditating on the card, writing your experience. And so if you pulled a single card for today, took a picture of it, and then did a little journal entry about that, I think that could teach you a lot. Okay. Let's see. Have you ever felt drawn to do a collaboration with the right person? Once I do podcasting, there'll naturally be collaborations. And I have people that I want to talk to that I think you would enjoy talking to, that I know in real life, that I would highlight in that. But it has to be someone of a similar energy with a similar approach. How do you block negative energy? I just don't tune into it. So specifically, you're going to get a lot of this online too. It's in the comments. The good thing is YouTube does a pretty good job of just putting it in there's an offensive folder for stuff that shouldn't be seen. And most creators just don't read it because it's not worth your time. So I typically will look at it, take a deep breath, and just go walk the dog and think this isn't worth it. I don't engage with the negative energy in comments. That was something I learned. That's advice for new people. Don't answer negativity. Don't argue with trolls. It's not worth it. Let's see. What's your thoughts or insights on spirit's role in the context of human suffering? I think that free will, like I said, at its best can elevate. At its worst, we go through things that when you or I suffer, it creates context and compassion. And I know I was bullied as a kid, not all the time, but like there was a couple points where I had to deal with a bully at the bus stop or someone saying mean things to me at school. And when you are dealing with that kind of negativity, thankfully I was able to move beyond it, and it was just a couple of isolated cases. But it taught me that I would never want to misuse power or authority or make anyone feel bad about themselves if I could avoid it. Not intentionally. So that helps you become a better person. So sometimes pain and suffering helps. Having just lost a loved one, the pain, it gets better. I mean, what I'm so surprised is that we're able to rebound after losing things that we care about in our lives, people and places and things. But the human ability to just rebound is amazing. So it creates compassion, it creates strength, and empathy. And so suffering does serve a certain niche, but I don't think it needs to be something, it's not necessarily the energy that we need to go down and try to find. It's just one of many teachers. That's how I view it. And when we're tired of the lesson, we can move out of it. Thank you so much for the super stickers, by the way. I will say thank you at the end, but I just saw Brandy and Regina, so thank you. Let me see if there's anything else. I'm just scrolling up here. Delays in life or delays in progress when you're manifesting are usually mindful. There's still some work to be done. There's still, that person might, if you're trying to manifest a partner and you've seen that there's a partner coming, but they're not coming yet, you and or your partner are finishing up what you need to work on. There may be other partners en route, for instance, or other opportunities that are going to happen before that. So the delay is intentional usually. Will I do a reading of my book anytime soon? There's no demand for it. If there was, yes. I think when I do my second one, I'll do that. So I plan to relaunch the first one with a new illustration. I found like a really cool illustrator. So when I do the second one, I think I would relaunch them both. And hopefully then we'll be far enough out of some of the restrictions with the pandemic that it would be better. Somewhere along the line, I'll have to think if there's just a relaunch that I do with the book, because the timing of it was not ideal. So that was part of it. Let's see. If you dream of death, it can be multiple things, actually. It can be an end of something. So I had a really interesting connection with, I've talked about this before, but Archangel, and I did it in the Pisces reading where we had all the technical problems. But Archangel Azrael has come through before, or even just the death card. I saw like a karmic relationship. It was really difficult. The person was not kind in any way, shape, or form. But there came a point where we released the karma, and I saw us sitting across from each other, and this person went up to the wall and touched a card or pulled it around. It was like a life-size card, and it was the death card. And then this person just walked through the door. And that told me that karma was released. We no longer would need to have anything to do with each other. We're both still living. It was the death of the energetic connection. They learned what they needed to, and I learned what I needed to, and we were free. So death can be liberation. Death can be the end of a contract. Death can be a choice to move on. Death isn't always death. Death is transformation. So even you seeing yourself dying, it could be symbolic of the old you going away and the new you stepping in. So much more broader view of that. It's usually very sort of clear if it's about sickness or health. So when I was shown relatives that were sick and wouldn't be living for much longer, the angel was around them and they said goodbye to me. The person said goodbye to me. So I was clear that the angel was ready to transition them when they were ready. So it wasn't like me dying or them dying. It was actually an angel with them saying, we're going soon. It's very clear. Or I will see someone or something in spirit just a little bit before it happens. And I see the welcoming committee of my family there. And then I'm like, oh, that's about to happen. So traditionally, for me anyway, it's much clearer if it's going to actually be related to the physical death, or if it's a spiritual or a sort of like rebirth in this lifetime. Let's see. I think we've got most of these answered. How to become spiritually enlightened. That is again, it's about practice and putting things into perspective. I think the main thing for me was not to get, there was a lot of, when I was working at various companies and there was a lot going on in my family, I just got tired of being in the mix of all of these people's tension. And I thought there has to be something more than deadlines and gossip and, frustration. And I just opened myself up to a different path. And that's what, again, inspired me to walk away from it all. So I kind of like dropped out of sort of the traditional path that people expected. I took a private jet somewhere else to a different zone, or like one of those little tiny ones, not a private one because they're not ecologically safe. But yeah, I just decided to go into a different path altogether. So I think choosing your authentic path will help you on to your own enlightenment. Let's see if there's anything else here. I'm going to scroll up and see if I missed anything. That death one was a good question, though. I think that's it. All right. Someone's asking about my orchids. They're easy to take care of, believe it or not. They last a long time. The blossoms last a long time. And yes, they're real. You can see the roots. They are real, and you can see the flowers. I just happen to like them. I think they're easy to take care of. And when you're living in an apartment complex, they are not going to cause issues like water damage or things like that. They're basically pretty low maintenance. There's just bark in there, bark or moss. So that's why I like them. In this room, I may warm it up with something more, but I need to find a place that sells really good quality plants, and yeah, it just takes a little bit of time. All right. Well, that's it, folks. I feel like we've talked about everything that we need to today. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, more good stuff to come in the months ahead. I want to try some new things. I definitely want to put some more energy into developing my podcast. I feel now that I've finally moved and I'm in a quieter space, that's going to be good. Actually, even this room has a lot less echo than the other one. That was one of the reasons that I explored a different space. So once I put some plants and some other things in the background, I think it'll warm it up a bit. But it feels like and I can also soundproof this a lot easier than the other space. So that's something to come. And then different types of video formats. And then in the comments below, when this is on replay, let me know if you enjoyed this and what else you'd like to see from me. I got a really clear indication from the questions that there's a ton surrounding guides. So perhaps in the future, I'll do something with guides. Okay. So thank you so much. Please join me on social media if you haven't already, so you can catch my daily reads. Again, a reminder that I don't do any sort of private readings. You can subscribe so we can keep hitting these milestones and do fun things. If you want me to do something different for whenever we get to 350, you guys can let me know what you want there. I'm going to take a moment here to say thanks to all of those that gave back today, and then we'll wrap up for this session. All right. So I'm going to say thanks to the newest members and anyone that gave a super sticker or super chat. So we'll start off with new members. So these are the folks that have joined in the last day. Let's see, Megan Eckel, Yvonne Peterson, Rachel Wilson Coda, and Margaret Jean. Thank you for either joining or rejoining. It's good to have you here. And things like this are an example of what I do for members. And I might do some more in the future. If I do podcasts, maybe they'll be behind the scenes or footage that gets cut. We'll do more for members as my sort of offerings here continue to progress. And you can let me know what you'd like to see as well. All right. So super stickers and super chat for today's live. Let's just quickly go through this. Nelly, thanks for kicking things off today. Color Me Happy, thank you so much. Corey narrates, thank you. Robert, good to see you, buddy. Thank you as well. I appreciate that. Love, Elizabeth Perez Oliveri, twice in a row. Thank you so much. Adele Forbes, much appreciation. Michelle Buckoff, Shayna Wailana, I'm just going to leave it at that one. Thank you so much. Jen G, Anne Elizabeth, Linda Ann, Paula and AJ Love, Mermaid Crystal, Brandy B, Regina, thank you again for your generosity, Catherine Keller, and Aphrodite Goddess 369. Thank you all so much. Again, you make all of this possible, including this in-depth Q&A. I did it not so much for views or anything. It was because all of you that give back, I wanted to answer as many questions as I could. And I think I actually got through everything. I don't know. In the future, I'm going to have to limit it a bit. But today, it was just to give back to all of you. All right. Lots of love and light. I will see you again. Let's see, starting tomorrow, I have to put the schedule up, but I'll be doing Aries tomorrow. Okay. And then Sunday Collective. And then I'll be back again next week, kicking it off the new month. So I can't believe I'll be looking at October since we're in September. So this year is really sliding by fast, isn't it? All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Lots of love and light to you. I'm going to wake up Sleeping Beauty in the background and give him a walk. Take care of yourselves, and we'll talk real soon. All right. Bye-bye.